It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 31st California Social Welfare Archives Annual Awards Reception. I'm Esther Gillies, President of the California Social Welfare Archives, which I will call the CSWA in future remarks, and I'm your program host for today. So, to begin, I want to share just a bit about the CSWA. Nori Klass, a professor in the School of Social Work at USC many years ago. There are a few of us here that can remember Nori, but not many. Sue, you remember Nori. He wrote a paper in 1984 on the preservation of social welfare documents. History, he said, is a literary effort to reconstruct a defined past with respect to time, place, and event by means of documentary analysis. No documents, no history. How often have we heard that when it comes to charting? If it's not there, it didn't happen. In this case, no documents, no history. Useful speculation, philosophy, ideology, and theology may exist without documents, but not history. He was referring to the work of the CSWA. We provide the history. We collect, preserve, and make available materials chronicling the development of social welfare in California. Created in 1979, our materials and oral histories are available to anyone engaged in the study or research of California's social welfare, providing them with opportunities to analyze the rich history and to make linkages between the past and present to inform understanding of contemporary and future social welfare issues. The CSWA approaches its mission in three ways. Number one, it gathers and preserves documents in the possession of agencies in the community or individuals which are archived in the USC Special Collections Library. Now, just a note on that. Those of you, particularly those of you who have reached retirement age and are looking at your house and wanting to downsize and declutter, and you look at those boxes in the garage that contain all the reports and records that you've kept for years, and you say, what am I going to do with them now? And you're considering the trash can. Instead, check in with us. We might see them as a gold mine rather than the clutter in your garage. Second thing we do, the CSWA conducts oral history interviews with individuals who have made significant contributions to California social welfare. Our extensive oral history collection continues to grow and is easily available on our YouTube channel and within the USC's Special Collection Digital Library. And number three, the CSWA honors individuals who have made significant contributions to California's social welfare, which we address through the annual awards event, which is today's event. And we also celebrate social workers in the California Social Work Hall of Distinction induction, which this year will take place in Northern California in October. And I suggest that you check the back cover of your program for this year's Save the Date notice. It'll be a spectacular event. Even if you have to go north, it's a wonderful trip north. We have a very impressive program and some remarkable awardees to present to you today. But before we begin, let me take just a few minutes to thank some of the many people involved in making this event and the work of the CSWA possible. I will be identifying a number of people in groups. When I call your name, please stand. I'm asking the rest of you to hold your applause until all the members of the group have been recognized and are standing. First, the CSWA Program Committee. Dorothy Fleischer, Chair, and committee members. And Dorothy is busy eating, but you can stand, Dorothy. You can still chew. And committee members Elma Folks, Helen Maxwell, Heather Halperin, and all of them are members of the board. Let's give them a hand. Other members of the board who are present today include Suzanne Dworak-Peck, Colleen Friend, Barbara Hitchcock, Mike Johnson, Mitch Mason, Phyllis Massing, Ayasing Hey, Asha. Asha, I cannot say your last name. Can you say it for me? Jayasing. Thank you. Thank you. I have had 3 years to try that, and I still can't say it. Also included are Melanie Vecito and Claude Zachary, all members of the board. And just a little side note here, anyone who is interested in joining the CSWA board to fill upcoming openings can give our office a call or talk with any of our board members who are here today. I'd also like to thank the Latino-Latina Social Work Caucus and the Forensic Social Work Caucus who provided the students who are staffing the check-in table today. The demands on an MSW student's time at this point in the semester are enormous. We feel truly indebted to these students for their generosity of their time and attention in today's activity. Please give our students a round of applause. A special thanks to Dean Marilyn Flynn and the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work for the unfailing, ongoing support of the work of the archives. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you, family, friends, social work colleagues, and others for sharing this special event. Your participation in recognizing the honorees inspires us in the social work community to aspire to levels of excellence as social workers and validates the importance of the work of the archives. Special guests with us today are Jessica Booker and Erica Nellison. Would you please stand? 2 students, there you are. Jessica and Erica are this year's recipients of the Madeline Stoner and Ralph Ferdig Social Work Scholar Award for their research on the surge in migration of unaccompanied children fleeing from Central America. Inaugurated in 2015, the award is made annually to USC MSW students in recognition of outstanding scholarship. Congratulations to you both. One of the newest inductees into the California Social Work Hall of Distinction is with us today. Congratulations, Ken Nakamura. Ken, are you here? Ken will be inducted into the hall in October in the celebration in Northern California. The questions raised in 1979 resulting in the formation of the CSWA remain with us and relate to our generation as well as those from the past. As a result, proceeds of today's event will be directed to our endowment fund to strengthen the financial foundation of the CSWA and ensure that our work will continue in perpetuity. And now, to the program of the day. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Sonia Nazario. Sonia has spent decades reporting and writing about social issues that are so important to the social work profession. While she is best known for Enrique's Journey, which won the Pulitzer Prize for feature writing and was turned into a book that became a national bestseller and required reading at hundreds of schools across the country. She's also produced influential series on other critical topics such as children of drug-addicted parents and hunger among school children in California. Her research and advocacy led her to become a renowned expert on the subject of immigration from Central America and how to address it. And we are privileged to have her here today to share her information and ideas on this subject. Sonia?
Thank you, Esther. I'm delighted to be here back at USC, a place that employs my husband, has helped bring the paycheck home every month for 30 years. So I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be before so many social workers and professors in this area. And also I brought with me my friend Eileen Pastor, who wrote the book on being foster parents. So very happy to be here. I thought I would talk today about my torturous journey to being an advocate for children. So I was born a rabble-rouser. There's no other way to say it. When I was 3 years old, my nickname was La Granuja, which means the troublemaker in Spanish. My first drawing was of me clutching, when I was 3 years old, clutching 2 glasses of whiskey. So I explained to my mother that when I finished the first one, then I'd drink the second one. I have never been a shrinking violet, afraid to tell people what I think about things. My experiences at a very young age made me really an ideal candidate to be an activist with a pen. Both of my parents' families fled persecution. My father's family left Syria in 1920, fleeing Christian persecution, to go to Argentina, which is where my father was born. My mother's Jewish family fled Poland, but right before World War II, she left as a young girl to go live in Argentina. And my newlywed parents left Argentina for the United States. This was the first day my father arrived to this country. And he came here to do biochemistry doctoral work. In Argentina, he was increasingly being threatened by military control over Argentine universities. I was born in the US shortly after they migrated. When my father died suddenly, when I was just 13 years old, my mom decided to take us back to live in Argentina. Her timing was horrible. It was the beginning of the so-called dirty war. The military was just taking power, and they would disappear, that's a euphemism for kill, about 30,000 people in the coming few years. I lived in fear every single day when I was 14 and 15 years old. The military, they would roam the streets in unmarked cars, plucking people up who would never be seen again. Folks with beards were suspect. All you professors and teachers, you were all viewed as commies in their eyes, and they certainly did not like anyone who was advocating for a more just society. They picked up a close family member of mine who was 17 and almost tortured her to death. They killed a good friend of mine. He was 16. They broke every bone in his face. I'm a book author, but I very vividly recall the day that my mother and I took all of our family's books into the backyard, made a huge pile, and burned them, because Alice in Wonderland was a book that could get you in trouble. I remember one day I was walking down the streets of Buenos Aires with my mom, and I saw this pool of blood on the sidewalk, and I asked my mom, what happened? And she said that the military had killed 2 journalists who lived down the street. Why? I asked her. She said that those 2 journalists were trying to tell the truth about what's going on here. I realized that the military, in part, they were getting away with what they were doing because people, they didn't really understand the magnitude of everything that was happening around them. I realized that you cannot have a democracy flourish, whether it's there or here, without a vibrant press that's willing to hold people in power accountable. That day, I witnessed the power of words, the power of storytelling. I was 14 years old, and I decided in that very instant, most of you would have made a different career choice, probably staring at a pool of blood, to become a journalist, to become, hopefully, a truth teller. I did not, this was my first ID as a truth teller, hopefully. I didn't get into journalism because I liked writing. I still hate writing every day. I got into journalism to say something. I was determined to tell stories that mattered. So I was the ideal candidate for advocacy journalism. I had a boatload of opinions. My experiences made me view the world too often as black or white, good or evil. And I was happy to share my views forcefully with anyone who would listen. I mean, when I was 20 years old, I was writing opinion pieces in the Washington Post about Sinn Féin and Ireland, and I absolutely knew nothing about Ireland. The journalism profession rightfully beat that activism out of me. I started my career when I was 21 at the Wall Street Journal. I was told I was the youngest reporter they had ever hired, and I was soon the backup Latin American correspondent. One early lesson in putting my opinions in check, I pulled up in my car to a restaurant for dinner with the chairman of Dow Jones and Company, which at the time owned the Wall Street Journal. My car had this huge bumper sticker on it that read, "U.S. out of El Salvador." My boss, who was the Wall Street Journal Miami bureau chief, he was an amazing newsman, but when he saw that bumper sticker when I pulled up, he almost ripped my head right off my body. I was taught to exercise whatever preconceived ideas that I had about an issue, to wade into reporting with an open mind, to act as if I knew nothing, which often was not that far from the truth, honestly, to leave my baggage at the door and report out the truth as faithfully, as fairly as possible. I came to understand and appreciate the need to report and write this way. Often, my opinions were dead wrong. If sources thought I was biased, they likely wouldn't agree to talk to me, and that would hinder my reporting. Readers can sniff out bias, and I can tell you, they can see it from a mile away. I think the most powerful stories are the ones where the reader does not feel like they're being led by the nose. I know I don't like that. I risk turning people off and keeping them from reading to the end of my stories. And the more I reported, the older I got, I saw that most issues have many shades of gray. The more you know, especially with things like immigration, the murkier things get. Which isn't to say I wasn't an activist at all. I chose to write about social and social justice issues. That's been my calling. At a business newspaper, I chose which stories to write about and which to ignore, which is a form of activism. I focused on people I feel don't get enough ink in this country: women, children, the poor, and Latinos. I made choices every single day. I couldn't get involved, but I tried to describe the problems so powerfully in such a compelling and emotional way that people would be moved, they would be prodded to act. I wrote sidebar stories that suggested possible solutions. I became an expert in what's called fly-on-the-wall reporting, immersion reporting. I'm like a pig in slop when I can drop myself right into the middle of the action that I'm trying to describe and hang out with people for months on end, to put myself on the front lines and hopefully take you to those same front lines. I envision my goal is I want to grab you as a reader by the throat and take you inside these worlds that you wouldn't see, to transport you to the front lines of the story. I think that kind of writing brings an immediacy and a power that you just can't get any other way. To say I had no opinion didn't mean I lacked a point of view in any way in what I wrote previously. In 1994, I wrote this story in the LA Times about hunger among school children. At the time, 30 million Americans, including 12 million children, didn't get enough to eat in this country. I told it through Edgewood Middle School, where by 10 a.m., there was this long line outside the nurse's office. Kids were clutching their heads, clutching their stomachs. In what was a mostly middle-class bedroom community of West Covina, California, these kids weren't sick. They were hungry. One boy got in trouble, so he would be sent to the principal's office. He knew that she had a jar of diabetic candies on her desk. As he sat in the assistant principal's office, he confessed to stealing food from 7-Eleven. The 13-year-old boy told the principal, bowing his head, "Every night, I go to bed hungry. 1 in 4 children in the U.S. went to class undernourished, and a quarter of all low-income children in America are anemic. Parents with full-time jobs but poverty wages were choosing, do I pay the rent or do I feed my kids 3 times a day? Studies show hunger stunts learning and lethargic kids disengage. Still, most California schools, including all in West Covina, California, had not availed themselves of a ready remedy, federally funded breakfast programs. The program had been barred or eliminated by school officials who opposed it on philosophical grounds. School boards were increasingly being dominated by religious right members who saw breakfast programs as anti-family. They said, well, if a parent can't feed their kid, what are they good for? Breakfast was a parent's responsibility. And so I watched teachers like Ernie Sanchez pick up the slack. During first period, the second grade teacher, he made cheese sandwiches and brought children apples from home. He told me all of these little hands reached out to me in a crush to grab the apples. He said, I'll take that image to my grave. I didn't think I would ever see that in America. I put readers on the school playground to watch kids pass out, dizzy from hunger in the afternoon. And I put readers in the home of families like this one, this mother, who had to split one hot dog between her 3 children. You see a boy who goes to play at a friend's house, not because he really likes that playmate, but because he knows his friend's parents likely have food in their refrigerator, unlike his refrigerator. The story included the strong point of view of those conservatives who oppose breakfast programs, but by the end, readers understood that not feeding kids breakfast was downright stupid. The story published right before Thanksgiving. Readers showed up in droves, spontaneously, with frozen turkeys in their arms at the school that I had written about. Overnight, California went from 1/3 of schools feeding breakfast to 2/3 of all public schools doing so. In 1997, I wrote a story called Orphans of Addiction. It was a finalist for the Pulitzer in Public Service. The crack epidemic, as you all know, was raging, and 1 in 5 children in the US is raised by a parent who's addicted to drugs or to alcohol. For weeks, I tagged along with this 3-year-old girl, Tamika Triggs, in Long Beach. One day, Tamika's mom, Theodora, took Tamika into the drenching heat of a clapboard shed, a crack house. There, her mom and a friend smoked crack. Theodora slammed heroin into an arm that was marbled with track marks. And then, intent on smoking the very last crumbs of crack, she gently lowered her sleeping girl onto a mattress that was moist with urine and semen of unknown adults. As mom inhaled, Tamika slept, her pink and white sundress absorbing all of those fluids. Like most children of addicts, Tamika got love in very brief moments when her mother was not so zoned out or consumed by her body's cry for heroin that she could think of nothing else. I watched as she was left alone in an apartment, this 3-year-old girl, for 24 hours as her mom went out to score drugs. How Tamika would play patty cake alone, how she became her own best playmate. I watched the person dearest to her self-destruct. It is here in millions of homes where victimized children grow up to victimize others in a generational cycle that costs taxpayers $200 billion a year in criminal justice costs, health care, and social programs. Tamika was often filthy. She would go an entire day without eating in front of me. I watched Theodora smack her daughter hard on her face. I saw 8-year-old Kevin and 10-year-old Ashley, who live with them, not be in school for 4 months, kept out by their speed and alcohol-abusing dad. I watched Ashley every night pray for a new father, one not consumed by the demons of addiction. The first time readers really prodded me to act, to be an advocate, was when they asked me why hadn't I helped the children right in front of me. I am not a mandated reporter, by the way. Why weren't you an advocate for them? Some readers were blistering. Was I a reporter, or was I a human being? Someone said that he was a child welfare investigator. He left 3 messages on my phone at the LA Times that he had urged the police to arrest me 3 times. How could you have lived with these children for months and not done anything to help them? Where is your conscience? Was winning an award so important to you that you would risk the life of a 3-year-old to do so? Or is it that you thought this child was from and is trash and deserves such a horrible existence? I only hope you win the award you so desire and place it somewhere everyone could see. A suggestion is the void in your chest where your heart should be. And those were some of the nice comments. But most offered praise. One man wrote, sobbing, "You may have saved not only their lives, but the lives of millions of other innocent children throughout the country." There was a 45% increase in calls to the child abuse hotline here in LA. Therapists called. Their clients were checking into Betty Ford. Parents didn't realize how drug use affected their children. There were many systemic reforms. A county ordered one of many audits of the Child Welfare Agency. They revised the child abuse hotline, and the county got more funds for programs to treat addicted mothers together with their children. And it led to reforms from Alaska to Connecticut to Los Angeles. And it helped the 3 children that I wrote about. The one girl had been called into the child abuse hotline 4 times and nothing had happened. I largely defended my role as educator as the bystander, to only intervene when someone was in imminent danger. That's my line. My role was to report reality, not change that reality and present an altered reality to my readers. Doing immersion reporting, that often meant I watched people, including children often, who were neglected and miserable. Sometimes I had to witness people in pain or danger to write the most powerful story that might bring those systemic changes, that might help more than the child that was standing right in front of me. I remember the famous author Alex Kotlowitz telling me that he had taken in 2 boys into his home that he had written about in his book, There Are No Children Here, famous book about 2 African-American boys growing up in the projects in Chicago. I was aghast when he told me this. He said I would soften up as I grew older. I always offered readers solutions. I showed the desperate need for more drug treatment centers where women could co-live with their kids as they worked on their recovery. I won the Pulitzer Prize in feature writing for this 6-part series called Enrique's Journey that ran in the LA Times. It was expanded to a best-selling book, perhaps the most read book today about immigration in the United States. It was the readers of that book that finally forced me to change into real advocacy. That story came to me from a conversation with this woman, my house cleaner, Carmen. She used to clean my house here in LA twice a month. And one morning I asked Carmen, "Are you thinking about having any more kids?" I thought she just had one young boy. She was normally this chatty, happy woman, but when I asked her that, she went silent and started sobbing. And she explained to me that she had left 4 children behind in Guatemala that I knew nothing about. She said, "Sonia, I'm a single mother. My husband left me for another woman, and most days I could feed those 4 kids once. But at night, they always started crying out to me with hunger, and I had nothing left to give them." I still remember how she told me that she would gently coax her kids to roll over in bed at night, and she would tell them, "Sleep face down so your stomach doesn't growl so much." She had left them in Guatemala with their grandma and come to LA to work. And she told me that she had not seen her children in 12 years. I could not imagine this. At home in Mexico and Central America, though, what I discovered were that there were millions of women just like my house cleaner, Carmen, single mothers who were too poor to feed their children enough or to see them study past the 3rd grade, which is all she had been able to do. Millions of them had moved to the United States, leaving their children behind out of love. They found jobs and sent money home to those kids. But the children yearned to be with their mothers, and they set out on their own to go and find them. An army of children, I discovered, about 48,000 a year, was passing through Mexico, and when I started to look at this in the year 2000, and entering the United States alone and unlawfully. Without money, many of them came the only way they could, grasping onto the tops and the sides of freight trains that travel up the length of Mexico. These kids face gangsters that are prowling the train tops. They face bandits alongside the rails. They face a dozen kinds of corrupt cops that I document that prey on these children and other migrants. All of these folks are trying to rob, rape, kill these children as they migrate north. Many of them die along the way as they travel north, and children lose legs and arms and fingers to that freight train. The youngest boy I heard of who traveled alone across 4 countries, he was 7 years old. Can you imagine? By himself. And I would travel with this 12-year-old boy whose mama left him when he was 1 in Honduras, and at 12 he would actually make it to her arms in San Diego, California. I wrote about this army of children migrating north alone through the true story of one boy, Enrique, whose mama left him in Honduras. He was just 5 years old when she walks away from him. 11 years later, this was his kindergarten mugshot after she left him, but 11 years later, he sets off to go and find her. I found Enrique when he had already made it all the way north to Nuevo Laredo, right across from Laredo, Texas. I spent 2 weeks with him, and then I took the same journey that he had made just a few weeks before. I would travel 3 months, 1,600 miles, and half of that on top of 7 freight trains through Mexico. What I witnessed, it changed me. Children who had lost arms or legs were trying to reach the United States and find opportunities that honestly I took for granted every single day. I lived this story. I had a branch almost swipe me off the top of the train. That very same branch swiped off a boy on the car behind mine. And he probably died as he fell down. These churning wheels produce this sucking wind that pulls you into the wheels as you fall down. I had a gangster try to grab me, to rape me on top of that train. I rode the trains in 2000 for 3 months, and I retraced the route a second time in 2003. Either I'm stubborn or crazy or a bad combination of both. Although my husband said that if I was going to really go on top of the trains again, I didn't even worry about the gangsters killing me. He was going to finish me off first. So the second time I went alongside the rails. I had 6 months of therapy to help get rid of the nightmares of that gangster racing after me on top of the train, trying to rape me. And yet when I see a train or I hear a whistle, my heart still starts racing. I start sweating profusely. I still have some post-traumatic stress. And because of the many advantages that I have, I know that I went through only 1% of what all of these children endure. Immigration has never just been a topic for me. I am the only person in my immediate family actually born in this country. But at some point after 2 decades of coverage, on and off, immigration went from something I reported on to something I truly understood in a pretty compelling way. In 2008, when I left daily journalism at the LA Times to write books, I waded into that advocacy gingerly. More and more non-engagement, it felt like the wrong choice to me. Keeping silent started to feel immoral. One of the most important things for immigrant children who arrive here alone is having a lawyer by their side when they go before that immigration court for their asylum proceedings. Half of these kids, they can't afford a lawyer. We all know that if you're an American and you're accused of murder, if you can't afford a lawyer, you're not going to go before that judge without someone defending you, and you get a public defender if you can't afford a lawyer. But not if you're an immigrant, even a child. I saw here in LA a 7-year-old boy shaking like a leaf with fear standing before that judge. Toddlers pee their pants before those judges. They clutch teddy bears. They are expected to argue complex asylum cases and fill out dozens of pages in English, get expert witnesses, get police reports from corrupt police officials 4 countries away. We can all do this as toddlers, right? Could this sham really be happening in our courtrooms? If a child has a lawyer, more than 7 in 10 win the right to stay legally in the United States, but without one, 9 in 10 of them lose. The consequences of losing are being sent back to what are now some of the most dangerous places on this earth in Central America. And so my first foray was to join Kids in Need of Defense, a nonprofit started by Microsoft and Angelina Jolie. And I have fought alongside colleagues there. We have recruited 14,000 pro bono lawyers across this country to take a case and represent these children in immigration court. But readers push me to do more. Book readers, I found, expect more from you than newspaper readers. They've plunked down $15, they've read 300 pages, that's a lot of time. When I talked about immigration, they didn't understand my saying, this is the problem, you should get involved to fix it. What, they asked me, was I doing about the problem to help? How could I push others to get involved when I wasn't involved myself, especially when I had such a platform? Their message to me, why do journalists who know an issue so well feel entitled to put this steaming turd in their readers' laps and expect them to figure it out, right? At colleges, students said to me, your story moved me. What should I do? Guide me. And I started to think, isn't that what I got into this gig in the first place to do? Yes, I am a storyteller, but a storyteller in the service of knowledge that leads, hopefully, to action. I also became inspired by my readers' activism. Students organized to go to Central America, and they've gone there and they've built schools and water systems. High schoolers sold cookies to raise thousands to start microloan programs in Guatemala. Just one school in La Jolla raised $9,000. They had the whole town on a sugar high, I think, selling cookies. They went and built homes on spring break for single moms in Honduras. Readers had tried to educate others. My book has inspired murals around the US, plays, a ballet in North Carolina, of all things. In high school, students write their own immigrant stories, and they self-publish this as books to share it with non-immigrant students so they could understand. They made giant pop-up books of Enrique's story to cart around and show at elementary schools in San Diego. They held dance-a-thons around the country to raise money for prosthetic legs for injured migrants. Readers actually quit their jobs and opened businesses in Honduras, trying to help create jobs for others there. Others push for change in their communities. People who heard a talk I gave in Georgia prodded Emory University to provide needs-blind admission. Georgia is a state where at the top 5 public colleges, you actually are not allowed to go to college if you are undocumented, even if you pay out-of-state tuition. So they prodded Emory University to do needs-blind admission, financial aid to undocumented students. Then they pushed other local colleges, and one got them to do the same. They reached out to me to tell me what they had done. They asked me, what should we do about unlawful migration? Make sense of it for me. I actually know what works to curtail migration. I'll have a piece about this in Sunday's opinion section, and which approaches are basically bogus. I started talking about how there are winners and there are losers in terms of the largest influx of immigrants in our nation's history between 1990 and 2010. 27 million people came here legally and not, the greatest number historically for the United States. I talked about how the 3 approaches that have been proffered by the left and the right, I say a pox on both of them, border enforcement, guest worker programs, and legalization, are simply not working to stem the tide and keep more kids and families safe at home, where honestly most migrants would prefer to live. I talked about how any true solution must come from addressing this exodus at its source, Central America. You had to deal with what was pushing people out of these countries. Events in 2014 kicked my advocacy up a notch. I suddenly felt educating people about the latest wrinkle in our long-running immigration saga was totally inadequate. The numbers of Enriques, as you see here, had gone up tenfold from historic norms in 2014. More and more children were not just coming to be with their mother. They were fleeing some of the most dangerous places on earth. The US, that's you and me as taxpayers, have spent about $8 billion in a decade to disrupt the flow of cocaine coming from Latin America. It used to come up through the Caribbean. Those red lines are drug flights. You can see 4 years later what happened when we spent all that money to disrupt that flow of drugs coming to us, the largest consumer of illegal drugs on earth. The narcos simply turned left and started landing 4 of 5 of those flights in Honduras. Foreign reporting staffs had been cut back, and no one was initially going to Central America to write about what was pushing kids to leave Honduras. 9 10-year-old children were forcibly being conscripted there to join gangs. I started writing opinion pieces for the New York Times and screaming from the rooftops, these children are refugees. They merit international protection by your and my government, the United States. I went back to Enrique's neighborhood to report this and wrote about kids like Christian. This boy's 11 years old, and these children are being conscripted by the gangs or the narcos that they report to. As he came out of elementary school, 6th grade, every day, the narcos were pressuring him to use crack to get addicted so that he would then serve as a lookout for them and sell drugs and eventually kill people for the narcos. He said, I'm getting out of here, even if I have to ride on top of that train. More girls were coming, and Milagro explained in that neighborhood why. She was told by the head of the gang, you're going to be my girlfriend, and if you say no, our gang and the narcos will exterminate your whole family here in Honduras. Despite the journey becoming ever more dangerous than when I made it, today the gangs are kidnapping 18,000 Central Americans a year as they travel north through Mexico. People are being enslaved, they're being prostituted, they're harvesting their organs. They've recently found 20 mass graves just in the state of Veracruz. Many are migrants who have been kidnapped by the narcos. Despite all of this, the number of kids kept coming. Every time I got my hair on fire about an immigration issue, especially relating to children, and I didn't see anyone else writing about it, I started calling up the New York Times opinion section and telling them I had something to say. I wouldn't just opine off the top of my head, I would report the heck out of it. The New York Times always published it and has mostly put them on the cover of the Sunday Review. Here I wrote about how our country is paying Mexico tens of millions of dollars to stop these kids from arriving at our border and are turning them back to the danger that they've just fled. And I wrote about how that had caused this dip that we see in 2015 in the number of kids coming. But once the kids and the smugglers figured it out, the numbers went right back up. And then I wrote last year, I was encouraging the fact that the US government was now doing something good. We were promoting violence prevention programs in Honduras, and I wrote about how in the worst neighborhood in Honduras, in the murder capital of the world for 4 years running, we had implemented these violence prevention programs. And we had funded outreach centers where kids can go get vocational training and help getting jobs. We had funded something based on the LA Grid program, where you go into schools and identify kids who are likely to become gangbangers. They have some of the 9 risk factors, and you put them into family counseling for a year, and lo and behold, they're 77% likely to commit crimes and abuse drugs and alcohol. And in this neighborhood, we also funded a nonprofit. In Honduras, 96% of all homicides get no conviction. You can shoot someone in broad daylight and get away with it because witnesses know if you step forward today, you're dead tomorrow. So this nonprofit went and coaxed reluctant witnesses to testify under a black burqa, like they do in Italian mafia cases. And They went from almost no convictions to now more than half of homicides in this neighborhood are getting convictions. And the number of homicides in this neighborhood with U.S. help went down 62% in 2 years. This cut the number of kids fleeing Honduras in half, or helped cut it in half. And now you see more kids playing happily on the streets of places like this neighborhood. And I'll end by saying that weeks ago, the New York Times opinion section reached out to me asking, did I have anything to say about the immigration issue? And of course I did. I've now testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the UN General Assembly, and I just gave a TEDx talk called Solving Illegal Immigration for Real. I even have a letter on the How to Help part of my website ready for you to send to your congressperson. I've been attacked by the right and the left for my advocacy. My piece last summer in the New York Times caused the left to call me a stooge of the U.S. government because I was promoting that the U.S. was actually doing something good for once in Central America. Being an advocate has serious risks in terms of my credibility and honestly my career. My book has been among the most chosen books by universities and hundreds of high schools as their common read. They pick one book that the entire entering class must read. In many conservative parts of the U.S., colleges and high schools assign my book because it is not a polemic, it's a story. It simply takes readers inside the life of one immigrant family and explores their choices and consequences. Because it has been so widely assigned, about 100 universities have now used it, 9,000 read it last fall at Michigan State, for example. It has opened many students' hearts and minds who tell me they were raised racist, they were raised anti-immigrant. They write me emails every day, and they all start kind of the same way. I was forced, and usually forced is in capital letters, to read your friggin' book. Then their tone softens. They say they were raised racist, and they knew no immigrants, but they were taught to hate them by their parents. But the story of one boy's journey through a hostile world to reach his mother, it changed their perspective. I fear losing these educators' trust. Stories are still incredibly important. Often it's enough to just put someone in another person's shoes, to feel what that's like. But I believe that especially now, in an era where readers face a barrage of information, sometimes we must step up with these complex, polarizing issues and simply tell them what's what. If you have covered education for years, what are the best, most successful strategies for actually fixing our schools? At a certain point, isn't it immoral not to share what we have come to understand? Readers prodded me to put that rabble-rouser I was as a child into action and return to my true self. Now I say things clearly, plainly. A nation like ours should protect refugees. If you take all the immigrant kids who come to this country alone each year, it wouldn't even fill up one football stadium. Let's not freak out about this, people. As a nation, we can afford to take them in. We can afford that amount of compassion. Walls don't work. Ask China. It didn't keep out the Mongols. Toddlers shouldn't go to court without a lawyer standing by their side to help them. That makes a mockery of our judicial system. I have become a voice, one of many, for immigrant children who come to this country alone. Being an advocate comes with big risks, but today I am asking you to consider, is it a leap that all of us should take? Is it time for all of us, for immigrant children, to dive into the deep end of activism? Thank you, and thank you for all the work you do for these kids. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And now we understand better the term rabble-rouser. Yes. Thought-provoking, So thought-provoking and so moving. Sonia, thank you so much. What I would like to suggest, Sonia is going to very graciously be available to us with the books out front at the as we end the event, and I am certain that then the questions that are burning, that she'd be willing to share answers with you at that time. So thank you so much, Sonia. We're going to move into the other awards, or to the awards section of the program, beginning with the George D. Nickel Awards. The George D. Nickel Awards were established in 1987 in honor of the man identified by Francis Feldman as the primary founder of the California Social Welfare Archives. The awards have been made each year since to individuals whose contributions to California social welfare have been outstanding and warrant special attention and recognition. The list of past honorees is in your program, and today we have two of them with us, Suzanne Dworak-Peck and David Kuroda. To present the George Nickel Award for Outstanding Contributions to Social Welfare, I am pleased to introduce Margarita, Artavia, Clinical Professor, Field Education, USC, Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work.
Thank you. Where are those glasses? Here they are. If I had all the power in the world, I would give yourself, Sonia, not only a honorary master's in social work, but the doctorate of social work as well, yeah, for your humanitarian efforts. I feel deeply honored, Sonia, and privileged to meet you. Okay. I first learned about Enrique's journey through my son, Diego. When he was starting high school in 9th grade, he introduced the book to me. I remember I was cooking, and he came in, and he said, "Mom, I think there's a book that you're gonna like, because I think it's a little social worky," he said to me. I said, "Oh, really, Diego?" He had already peeked at it. And he says, I think you'll like it. And then actually we began to read it together, different excerpts. So when I was asked to be the one to introduce the award to you, without hesitation, my heart danced with joy, because I always really had this little secret desire to meet you. And so I feel deeply, deeply happy to be here with you today. When he, it was one of his required readings when he started school. And the beauty is that it wasn't the administrators or the teachers who selected the reading of Enrique's journey. What they do is they get youth to come together, and then they read 2 or 3 books, and they decide they select the book. So the book came from the youth themselves, not the administrators or the teachers, and they selected your book as the reading for all the high school students that year for the summer. And they were going to talk about it when they returned in the fall. Okay, so we followed Enrique as he faced adversity along his journey, and through pure resilience, overcame the obstacles that he confronted along the way. Even beyond immigration, Enrique's journey touches upon fundamental issues that social workers confront in their own work with their clients who also experience such challenges and struggles. The story also touches upon psychosocial issues impacting Enrique and his family, such as cultural conflict issues, developmental stages, not only for Enrique, that little boy himself and through his own identity, but for his mother, and for not only at an macro level of practice clinically, but at a meso-macro level of practice within communities and different systems within the world. It touches upon attachment, the lack of, issues of parent-child conflict issues, homelessness, and many more in your book. So the George Nickel Award for Outstanding Contributions to Social Welfare is awarded to individuals like you, Sonia, who devote themselves to humanitarian efforts and promoting awareness of social issues. Sonia, through your artistry and literature, you have educated thousands of people like myself throughout the world about the struggles that so many immigrant and refugee children and families face in their journey to find a home. I'm an immigrant myself, and I found my home here in the United States. If you can please join me.
To present the George Nickel Award for Outstanding Professional Services by a Social Worker, we're pleased to have with us today Stephen James Holt, Chair of the Board of Directors for International Institute of Los Angeles. Welcome, Steve.
International Institute of Los Angeles is proud of our president and CEO, Steve Voss. He joined us in 1993, and in the last 24 years, we have benefited from his clear thought, dedication, experience, and guidance. With Steve as our president, our budget grew from 1993 fourfold, 4 times larger, because of his commitment in being able to explain what we are, who we are, and how well we do it. This lasted and brought us to the year 2007-8, when there was a great recession, and our funding collapsed by 1/3. No one seemed to have money then. Over the last 5 years, we seem to have regained, and he brought us back to where the board breathed freely. And then the political climate changed once again. And now immigration is severely cut, and many service programs are really in danger. Turbulent times. Steve has been wonderful. When times are good, he has spread the word of how good our program is, how excellent our services are. He is respected in the community, and we have grown. And in turbulent times, he has informed the board of the critical decisions that need to be made so that we comfortably complete the contracts that we must fulfill. But at the same time, when there is not funding, how we can get out of it with a minimum of loss to our company. It is really wonderful that we largely run a black budget operation. It's through his excellence and his tenacity to do this. He outlines the choices for the board well in advance of when they need to occur. And he forecasts from the community that he knows so that we can continue and hopefully go on for another 100 years providing service to Los Angeles. He also knows how to communicate who we are so that we better inform the public. He worked with us to simplify our mission statement. So now it reads, what we do is to help families become self-sufficient, and we promote cross-cultural understanding, something that sparks the interest of people that we approach. He is an inspiration because he is involved in so many other committees and programs throughout Southern California. And he is a person who has inspired 2 significant programs to start up and be continuously funded. One here in Los Angeles is CHIRLA, the Coalition the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. And early in his career, when he was in Chicago, he co-founded the Margarita Center for the Treatment of Survivors of Torture. His dedication has been awesome. He inspires us to do better and be responsible to International Institute of Los Angeles. He's also well-rounded. He is happily married, has 2 grown daughters and 2 grandchildren. It's my pleasure to present to Steve Voss.
Turn around so we can get a picture of Steve before you talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
I can take that to the table for you.
Thank
if
you so
wish.
much, yeah.
Can you come close to them?
Okay, I will. First of all, of course, I need to thank the committee who's recommended me for this recommendation, and certainly to Esther. I'm touched. I'm, of course, especially touched following Sonia and her stirring presentation, which frankly illustrates the kind of work that International Institute has dedicated itself to for more than 100 years. I'd like to thank my boss, Steve Holt, who introduced me and presented the award to me, and I have another board member there, Tom Lenz, who I would like to recognize. I must say I'm quite surprised at the turnout of friends and colleagues that I know as well, who that was a surprise to me to see all of them here and to come and spend their evening, and I appreciate that very much. Next, I would like to recognize my brothers and their spouse and their son, who came all the way from Illinois for this. I tried to talk them out of it, and they said no. They were very kind to do that. I hope you'll indulge me using my notes a little bit. We all know something that bears repeating, and that is that any honoree for anything really is a small symbol of a lot of work and a lot of people's dedication over time. And so I'm humbled by the fact that I have been selected to receive this recognition, but I know something. And any honoree really does know that they are a symbol of a lot of work, much of which is represented by the employees of International Institute who are here, and also over the many years in which I've worked. I want to single out 3 individuals that deserve particular appreciation. I've been in a role in the past where I went down a slippery slope of trying to thank everybody I could see in the room. They took my glasses and I failed. I'm not going to try to do that. I am certainly not going to try to do that. I want to select 3 who have made an incredible contribution to my life and my career. My mother, frankly, is a person I have never met anybody as giving and generous as she. She's a model of giving and caring that I've not met anywhere else. My father was a different personality, but he always wanted to stand up for doing the right thing. He spoke in front of his own executives where he worked at a large corporation, told them not to buy grapes 30, 40 years ago. He told them that the cars that were being manufactured in the United States had about 50% too much weight behind them, and they ought to do something to make them operate more efficiently. And he even would go to City Hall and other places and write letters to editors. So what I got from him was an appreciation for standing up for doing the right thing. That is easily said, not so easily done, some of which was illustrated aptly by our speaker, Sonia. Next, I would like to honor the person who's by far the best social worker in my house, who has been an inspiration to me and a model to me and a leader to me. And she happens to be here tonight. She's a USC MSW grad. She's a retired LCSW. Her clinical skills would run circles around mine, and I want to recognize and thank my wife for her modeling over the years as well. I want to close with a few other remarks. I'll be brief. In preparation for this, I thought, what should we reflect on now that we are in this decidedly new era of leadership in our country? What I will not do is get into a bunch of partisan politics, but I will share with you some observations I've read from others. Someone named Nat Kendall Taylor and Susan Nal-Ballis remind us of the awesome power of the way we talk. Sounds simple, sounds almost trite, but it is not. How we talk ends up being a very powerful way that we do advocacy. We need to, quote, fight between ways of seeing the world so that it is never entirely one and done. That is an encouragement for us who are facing some adversity, some of which Steve described aptly, that nothing's ever really done. It's just temporarily some setback, and we have to use these as an opportunity to rally ourselves for the justice and what needs to be done. We must promote better explanations of how the world works, requiring real community conversations about the nature of the problems that confront us and our options in addressing them. Those conversations will likely begin in the problem mode. That means we will probably not begin by all agreeing. We need to prepare ourselves for the fact that we will not be agreeing as we start. And so they will require reframing to focus on solutions. Perceptions of the truth are frame dependent. How one has experienced their life and their background and their training and their experience, their neighborhood, a million influences on us, frame how we see problems, whether we think they are a problem. If so, what do we do about it? We have to recognize, and I think we need to learn from the last election, that probably some of us were ill prepared to understand other people's perspectives on things. And so, instead of complaining, let's do something about that. Let's reach out to try to understand others' perspectives and look for ways that we can find common ground, that we will have values that hold true for our entire communities, that the places that we want our children and grandchildren to enjoy, institutions that have served people well in the past, and responsibility we share in building well-being for all Americans. In true American fashion, there will be hundreds of imagined Americas as we experiment with various ways to bring that about. Pablo Eisenberg intones, nonprofits need a heavy dose of honesty and courage, making certain that the new administration hears the unvarnished truth and clearly understands that nonprofits will fight to uphold America's democratic institutions and processes. I think that's what we're all dedicated to. Thank you again, and thank you for the recognition.
In 2010, the CSWA introduced the Francis Lomas Feldman Excellence in Education Award in honor of Francis Feldman, one of the founders of CSWA, and a professor emerita at the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work until her death in 2008. To make the presentation this year of this award is Tory Cox, Clinical Associate Professor, Field Education, and Assistant Director, Field Education here at USC.
Murali and I were joking earlier that we have 7 minutes to split between us, which is impossible, but I will do my best to leave most for him. Dean Marilyn Flynn, thank you for your support of CSWA. Suzanne Dworak-Peck, thank you for your presence here. And to President Gillies, thank you for the opportunity. It's my honor to introduce you to Dr. Murali Nair, but if you've been here since the reception started, you probably already know him. He is an individual who will introduce himself and meet everybody in the room. He has that magnetism about him. He's got joy and zest literally coming out of his pores, and it doesn't take long to realize that. It's been a joy to know him since 2012. Dr. Nair is a developer of people. And I think that's a trait that is often overlooked in our society as we try for different types of achievement. He looks out for the opportunities for others and encourages them to move into spaces that they might not otherwise think is possible. He is not somebody who is mailing it in, nor is he about to. You may know that he does documentaries on super centenarians, which I learned are people who are living well past 100. And I think he's studying their habits, so he can follow in their footsteps. He is energetic and nonstop. He likes to talk about how he trained under Dr. Margaret Mead. It's something that I think he mentions quite often, a famous cultural anthropologist. And as I read about her, and I could see the influence on you, and how her way of embracing culture, and actually being one of the first to recognize culture as a strong influence in how people develop. I could see that coming through you. Dr. Nair is from the Spice Mountains area of India and has been in the United States as a professor for quite a while. This year alone, he nominated over 20 students for awards within our school, and university-wide, 10 students receive university-wide awards. I joked around in the awards committee, that if it wasn't for Dr. Nair, we would literally have half the amount of nominees. He's quite prolific, but not just in nominating students, but he's written 13 books, authored over 100 refereed or peer-reviewed journals, and he's involved with over 11 different documentaries. In his previous work at Cleveland State, he also organized trips to India. Took more than 5 different groups to India. He's got a website. You can go check him all out. He's quite amazing. 2 years ago, I got a chance to experience a little bit of his energy when he convinced me to go to the Network of Social Work Management in Washington, D.C. and present with him. I didn't know that present with him meant he would develop me into a presenter. And so as I arrived in D.C., he said, "I really hope you do a great job tomorrow." And I was like, he has this beautiful way of doing that in a way that you kind of accept it. He convinces you can do some things. Turns out the presentation was on the last day of the conference on a Friday afternoon, the last slot. And I certainly lamented the fact that nobody would show up. As I was doing some last minute stuff on the PowerPoint, I didn't know where Dr. Nair was. Then I heard him in the hallway. He was drumming up business. I heard him say, "Come on in, there's a great presentation." He got a few people in the room and then convinced them to start laughing so that people outside would want to come in and see the presentation. So he does convince you in a number of different ways how to actually exceed what you thought was possible. Anyways, I've shared a couple stories. I just deeply appreciate this man and what he means to our school and to the people he influences. He's nominated and actually led 2 students over the last 2 years to become Fulbright scholars, which is really quite exceptional. He's a Fulbright scholar himself as well. So please join me in welcoming this most distinguished man, Dr. Murali Nair, as the 2017 recipient of the Francis Lomas Feldman Excellence in Education Award.
Thank you, everybody. A couple more. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we are all sitting for almost an hour and a half, I'm going to do a 30 seconds mindfulness. I want you to close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths. While you are inhaling, you could think of positive things happen today. And after the 3rd breath, I want you to slowly open your eyes and look at the person sitting next to you and give a gentle smile. I bet they will smile back at you. Okay. I would like to take this opportunity to thank many people who have made this day possible, especially to Katie Johnson, our program manager, Thank you, Katie. Thank you. Thank you also to Tory, my esteemed colleague, for his introduction. Whenever I stand near him to take a picture, I always tippy-toe, because I am only 5'6". I want to catch up with him a little bit, And special thanks to Dean Marilyn, who let me orbit in a satellite of my own in this social work universe and beyond. And I am afraid one of these days she's going to drag me down, So now the sky is the limit, I'm very, very grateful to Marilyn and Susan also. I want to come up with new innovative ideas, And each day when I get up, I think of something new, and my family try to calm me down, So that's something, I would like to dedicate my award to one of my former students by the name of Monaco. And by birth, she did not have the capacity to hear or speak. I worked with her 2 years at USC, and she graduated with honors, and she was also the president of International Social Work Student Association. Her father is a professor in Kyoto University in Japan, and mother is a teacher. And they came, whenever they come, they said they want to make me a part of their family. And anyway, I kept in touch with her, and about 2 years ago she graduated. Now she's finishing her doctoral program in Chicago, and recently she just published an article in a journal, and she mentioned my name in it. I was really moved, and now we both co-authored an article. It is coming in a journal, And I feel so small in front of this Monaco, and who couldn't even say a word and who couldn't even hear it is an amazing person, And I just couldn't forget Monaco, And I think at this time I would like to recognize some of my students who are here, who are already getting university award. Jason, Anil, would you like to stand up for a second? And who are getting the award? Yeah. And also our Nils, who is a Fulbright scholar, just came back from India. Yeah. He's a real example of innovation in social work, and he's proving me that sky is the limit, in terms of what we can accomplish, And he's hanging around with people in Keck Medical School and other places. And thank you, Nil, for expanding the social work horizon for all of us. Thank you. And also Tanya Bradkin, who is one of our graduate, and Tanya around here, and she's another amazing person. I admire her, and she's a columnist in our the famous thing. What is that called, Tanya? Yeah, Huffington Post. She writes a regular column on it, And also Erica and Jessica, who came back from Singapore after presenting a paper on migrants and refugees. Would you like to stand up for a second? And, Now I would like to give a special thanks to my wife, a greater strength throughout my higher studies and career, and also my family, 3 children, my son-in-law, 3 grandchildren, and soon to be my daughter-in-law is here. Our daughter Munnu is a physician, and Nimit, the son-in-law. Nimit, would you like to stand up one second? And sorry. Yeah. Nimit is 6 foot 8 inches tall. So wherever we go, they want to know, does he play basketball, And Nimit is an oncology hematologist at City of Hope, and he is very creative, utilizing creative arts in healing and with the cancer patients. And he let me go to his clinic, and I do a laughter yoga session with the thing as a volunteer, Thank you, Nimit, for letting me come in. And we both co-authored an article on traditional healing in the Encyclopedia of Human Services. And our oldest son, Unni, is a sustainability manager at Cisco. And would you like to stand up? And his fiancée is Katie. She's a sustainability manager at Apple. Katie, do you know? Thank you. And me and Unni co-authored a book on engaged learning, which is published by USC, Figueroa Press, and with the foreword from one of his famous professor in business on appreciative inquiry, and he let me utilize it in human service field as such, And my younger son, Mohan, he used to work for CAA. Now he joined the Fox Television, and I wrote so many books, and at CAA, the agents work with the best-selling authors, and they are the Oscar award-winning movie and actors and directors, agents. And I asked him whether I could get an agent. He said, no, my writing is not good, for the CAA, And I am blessed with a family. They are always cheer me up, and I am able to take my ideas, and they are the first group to tell me whether it is feasible or not, And the children call home every day and ask my wife, and what grade I got that day, and it's very hard to get an A from my wife, for my day's work, and I think we try to use the learning, as part of the family things, And my grandchildren, though I got a MS in computer science 35 years ago, they will show me how to use the iPhone and iPad, the 6-7-year-old children. And so I feel that we should all learn, whatever credential we got is nothing, when you talk about the next generation, people who are coming into school, For me, teaching is an honorable task, and learning is a lifelong endeavor. It happens by enriching all our 5 senses, It is not only just reading, it is observing, listening, tasting, smelling, and feeling. Our knowledge to convey to others is an art, I utilize the storytelling process, and also I jokingly tell my students on the first day of my class, if they keep smiling and keep a smiling face the entire semester, I'll give them 5 extra points, If they look grumpy, grouchy, sad, angry, I take away 5 points. But it's amazing, over the years I noticed the students get more energized, and I also do the 30 seconds mindfulness at the beginning of the class before I get going. And I keep a diary like this one, yearbook, and the students write, and I'm going to one of these days going to publish, It is amazing, what my graduating students are writing, little bit notes, and beyond the academic things, we take it for granted, My 3 grandchildren, I want to tell you a little bit about. My 7-year-old grandson, Govind, asked me to listen to his Toastmaster speech, and he was working on a school project on polar bear and climate change, I didn't even know some of those things, and with his inspiration, and we even went to Alaska, and instead of looking at all the places, and he was so much interested in looking at all what is happening to all the melting of the ice, a 7-year-old. So I was thinking, there is something we all need to learn from our own children. Our 10-year-old granddaughter, Aishwarya, she inspired me daily with compassion. She grew her hair long, and then one fine morning, and she said she wants to cut the hair. And then she donated it to children who suffer from hair loss due to their cancer treatment. And she not only did this to herself, she inspired her classmates. I told her, sorry, I can't cut my hair. I don't have any, My 11-year-old grandson, Siddharth, he's the student council president of his elementary school. And there is no task big for my grandson, and he is not scared to try anything. He's like me, he got my genes, And whether he's running for student council president, or singing, or dancing, or basketball, or musical instruments, he reminds me of a favorite quote of Henry David Thoreau: this world is not a canvas, is but a canvas to our imagination, So that's something, I am often asked, what keeps me energetic? The truth is, I am inspired and received extra mental energy from my students like Monaco and colleagues, and especially from my family members, I am learning every day from others. It is not the bookish knowledge, In the oldest living language, Sanskrit, there is a saying, Aham Brahmasmi. That means, I am the infinite reality, and each and every one of us has the power to succeed. With the student's determination and a teacher who continues to enrich them, nothing is impossible. We call it Guru. Guru is a person, is not only just go and teach in the classroom, My wife prepares me 3 extra lunch every day when I come to school. I had a program called Lunch with the Professor, and we sit around and sky is the limit, we talk, And I was nervous to tell our dean, thinking that she may say she doesn't have money to give me, It is a homemade lunch. So, I think, it's again, I invite students to our house also by the people who are ready to graduate. We talk about diversity. We talk about how others live, and we go one more step further. We invite the students, and my wife is kind enough to open the kitchen for my students, and we sit around and we prepare a meal, and we sit around and sing, and even my granddaughter teach them how to dance, and I think it is something. Some other university like Oxford and even Columbia, and they are now doing it. And I was trying to tell Marilyn, maybe she should give me $10 a student to buy grocery, to have it. But anyway, so, I never heard back from her. I think she rather. She has a program, and I also participated, where, she let us take them to the faculty club. I noticed the bill was $60 for 3 people, That's a lot of money. So, so maybe, I really enjoy, but I think that kind of interaction, the learning never stops. I humbly request, everyone that, and it doesn't matter, like our keynote speaker was talking about, the children from the far away places, and we can learn. And I think that is something, it's a lifelong experience, And if Marilyn let me go, I do not know what I will do, And I think, it is something I really enjoy each and every day of my life, Thank you very much for honoring me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murali. I have just 3 short issues of business before we end. I have to say thank you to our event sponsors. That's something we did new this year. I have to thank Arita Kroll, Suzanne Dworak-Peck, Dorothy Fleischer, Elma Folks, Colleen Friend, Hannah Hamovich, Elma Hill, Barbara Hitchcock, James Kelly, Phyllis Massing, Donna Munker, Tina Nelson, Helen Ramirez, John Sager, and Wendy Smith. Thank you all very much. And if I could ask, if you are not too attached to the name badges you got today, if you would just drop them off as you leave at one of the tables or at the table around the pillar, and we'll use them again next year. You might get the same one again. And the results of the raffle, another new initiative. We do have the results. The ticket sales closed at 6. The drawing took place at 6:30. And the prizes were won by the gift card to the Green Street Restaurant. Is it Luz Miranda? Who is an alumni. The In-N-Out Burger T-shirt by one of our alumni, Phil Willis. In-N-Out Burger beach towel and gift cards, Mark Whitkoff, who is here. And two bottles. Katie has your and I'll have it here at the side. Yeah. The 2 bottles of premium Santa Barbara wines from Rosemary DeMatt, and she's alumni. And bottles of premium California wine, Susie Lonas, and she's not here, but she is an alumni. Esther Gillies won something. How interesting. A Noise Within Repertory Theater in Pasadena. Oh, how nice. Jacqueline Brooks won the 4 tickets to the Luckman Fine Arts Complex at Cal State LA. Jeannie Tsay won the Pasadena Pops 2017 Summer Concert at the Arboretum. Mitch Mason, board member, won Tickets to the taping of HBO's Real Time with Bill Mayer. Maher? Looks like Mayor to me. I thought I always said Mayor. Brittany Morris, who is here. The tickets to the Jimmy Kimmel Live VIP Green Room Backstage. And the grand prize, 3-night stay for up to 4 people in an oceanfront vacation rental in Malibu. David Kuroda. Thank you so much for sharing this evening with us. It was delightful having you here. We look forward to seeing you again at another event. Thank you.